I chose to talk about stalkers. I chose this topic to inform people about stalkers and to let people know the different kinds of stalking and warning signs. What is stalking? Stalking is a constellation of behaviors in which one individual inflicts on another repeated unwanted intrusions in communications. This includes unwanted phone calls, unwanted visits to the victim's work or home, sending letters, poems, and gifts, and even setting up surveillances. Stalkers can be anyone that you know. Most people have been stalked by someone in their life, whether they know it or not. It can be very scary and serious, but yet also somewhat harmless. There are several different ways for someone to stalk a person. Stalkers can follow you on Facebook or any online communication site, follow you on your daily routine, watch you at work, or even watch you at home. Most of the stalkers will not hurt the people that they watch, but there are always exceptions. There are considered to be 3 periods of when stalkers first came about. The first was from 1980 to 1988, and it talks about how the word stalker was never really used. Instead, words like psychological rape and obsessive following was used. They still have the same symptoms and actions of stalkers these days. The second was from 1989 to 1991. The term stalker increased, but it was used more for star stalkers. They stalk the stars the same way they stalk normal people. They will send letters, try to meet them, follow them around, and constantly badger them. The third and final period was from 1992 to 1994, when stalking became known as a product of failed relationship and male violence. There are several different types of stalking. Some include stranger and acquaintance stalking, date stalking, spouse stalking, intimate partner stalking, and family member relative stalking. Stranger stalking is when the victim and the offender do not know one another. Acquaintance stalking is the victim knows the offender on a casual basis. Some examples could be people who you work with or your neighbors. Date stalking usually involves someone who wants to have a relationship with the victim, or they are trying to work on a failed one. These kinds of stalkers will sometimes be physically or emotionally abusive. Spouse stalking can happen for a couple of different reasons. One could be that they are anticipating a divorce and they could be trying to gather evidence. Another could be they feel that their spouse is cheating, so they stalk them to try and find something out. Intimate partner stalking is similar to the spouse and dating stalking. It deals with someone who you have dated for a while and lived with, but without being married. It has similar reason as the spouse stalking. They want to follow the activities of their partners to see what they have been doing, and they also might see if they can try and fix the relationship. Family member relative stalking is a fairly new area of stalking. It mainly deals with the offender having a drug or alcohol problem. The family victim could have kicked them out because of their addiction, and the offender will stalk and harass the victim in hopes of possibly trying to get back into the home or get back at the victim for kicking them out. Who does the stalking? It's mainly male offenders and female victims. Sometimes it's female victims or female offenders and male victims. In homosexual relationships, you can have males stalking males, females stalking females, and men who stalk women, they often do it as a form of punishment, control, or fear. How would you know if you were being stalked? If you constantly kept running into the same person at work, at home, the grocery store, the gym, or just everyday places that you go. If you have the feeling that you are being watched by someone. If you keep receiving phone calls from the same person over and over to the point where it's uncomfortable. On top of the calling, sometimes you will get several emails or several Facebook comments or just several things like that. Pretty much it's any situation that makes you feel uncomfortable. You could be a starting sign of a stalker. If you feel like you have a stalker, here's some ways that you could be affected. Victims of stalkers are greatly affected physically and emotionally. They constantly have to revolve their life around the stalker. The victim always has to wonder what's going to happen next, where the stalker will be next, and sometimes the victim feels that the stalker could harm their family, so they stay distant from their family. The victims could develop sleep deprivation or loss of appetite because of the stress that the stalker puts on them. Stalking was not really taken seriously whenever it first came about. It wasn't until the 1990s that the anti-stalking laws came about. They have some advantages, like they make the public aware of the seriousness of stalking. They offer better protection of the victim's rights and handing down harsher penalties for repeat offenders. They allow the police and the courts to interfere with the stalker's threats before they get out of control. They can provide a psychological structure for the stalker once they get caught. They provide protection for the stalker victim and help them give them peace of mind. And they also provide arrest and imprisonment for habitual offenders. Stalkers can be any kind of person. It can be someone you know well, or maybe even someone who you've never met before. There are several different types of stalkers who use different techniques when stalking their victims. Sometimes a stalker can be violent with their victim, but they generally like the power that they get and the control that they get from the victim. Sometimes, not all the times, stalkers will move on to another victim after they felt that their goal is achieved from one victim. There are warning signs that you should always look out for, and if you feel that you have a stalker, you should contact the police immediately to help prevent any more threats or any more actions by that stalker.